what are you telling your clients when it comes to, coming upon a burglary? Somebody called it a robbery, but when someone's breaking into an unoccupied vehicle, let's use that as an example. What are you saying?
The law always values life over things, right? Which means that I know we're speaking in very general terms, but this is true throughout the country. If human life is in danger, you are always going to have an easier time acting in self-defense than if you are just protecting your stuff. And now sometimes it's both. Sometimes you come upon a burglary in progress, and then all of a sudden it's you that you're defending as well.
Right.
I had someone who called the U.S. LawShield emergency hotline really recently. He came upon a burglary of his truck in progress. The guy was crawling out of the back window of his truck with a firearm he had stolen from the truck in hand. Now, to me, and he shot him, and ultimately, was not charged, and it went really well for the self-defender. But ultimately, I don't see that as a property crime, as defending against someone burglarizing my truck. That was, you are coming out of my truck at me with a gun in your hand. That's a person crime.
Right. And Steven asked this question. He says, I'm in Colorado. I'd probably let them steal his property, reasonable if, not a human life in danger. But what if he's being carjacked? That's a really good question, Steven. And at that point, as Emily was talking about, it's not just a property crime, a carjacking, it's not just stuff at that point, because now you're in danger. And so obviously you'd follow the law of the state of Colorado if you're in Colorado. And so I'm sure they have a castle doctrine with their vehicle. I'm sure they give you extra rights to defend yourself. But at that point, I think it's important to recognize that it's not a property crime. A carjacking is a person crime.
Right. And, there's many states that do give you the right to use sometimes up to deadly force in defense of property.
Yes.
Just because it's there in your penal code, in the black and white law of your state, doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. And the reason being, this concept that's been kind of like floating over us the whole time we've been talking about, which is reasonableness. Because ultimately, you get that jury, and do you want that jury to say, would a reasonable person have shot over a catalytic converter?
Right.
And even if, here in Texas, that would be theft in the nighttime, right? So potentially it's in our law that you could do it. But I don't want a client sitting in front of a jury and having a jury ponder that, because there's just a gigantic chance that a jury's going to say, no, a reasonable person wouldn't have done that. Sorry. Now you are going to prison for 99 years.
Yes.
So,
I mean, and a lot of people prepare. They go to the range. They put a lot of, bullets down range, but they don't think about the legal aftermath. And I think that's really important to circle back to. And this is one of those conversations where you have to prepare ahead of time. Is it worth going to prison for the rest of my life over a catalytic converter? I think most people will say no. I'm sure there's a couple of catalytic converter fans out there that maybe, it's worth it to them. But for most folks, that's not going to be worth a trip to prison.